We're joined today by Amy Ries, and we're talking bald eagles today as part of the program. First of all, Amy, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you.
Good. So tell us about your role, where you're at, and kind of the things that you do on a daily basis.
I work for the Raptor Resource Project. We're best known for the Eagles in Decorah, Iowa, although we also have cams in a lot of other places. And I do a variety of functions. I would say that I'm a jack of all trades and probably a master of none. So I work on Eagle Cam installs. John really picks the cameras and deals with a lot of that technology, but I'll come in and troubleshoot or help with that if I need to. I coordinate our banding program. I band peregrine falcons. I rappel. I produce social media. I produce blogs. So you name it, I probably had a hand in it.
When it comes to the bald eagles recovery in the area over the last few decades, it's really an amazing story. And I know a lot of people heard of it, kind of touch on some of the highlights of that, on just how dire it was decades ago and just where it's at now.
It's absolutely amazing when you look at all the eagles that are around today and think back in the late 60s and early 70s, you just didn't see them. They were, I don't know that they were completely extirpated from the area, but if they were around, they were very, very rare. Once DDT was banned in the United States in 1972, and then the American bald eagle or bald eagle was protected by the Endangered Species Act, that really gave states the tools that they needed to work on recovery programs, whatever those looked like. So Wisconsin looked at breeding bald eagles in captivity that didn't necessarily go all that well, but there were ways to support nests, and the population started to rebound quickly once they were free from persecution and once DDT was gone. So Wisconsin in particular was able to provide a whole bunch of tools. They did tracking projects, they did monitoring projects, they did a lot of citizen engagement. And then to some degree, the species sort of recovered itself, right? Wisconsin's a great place to live. There's plenty of fish in a lot of areas. The eagles really liked it, and people also really admired the eagles. Another thing that's hard to remember is that until I want to say 1950, it was more or less legal to persecute bald eagles, and there was actually a bounty up in Alaska. So it wasn't uncommon for people to shoot them or shoot at them or drive them out. And they didn't tend to be, even though they were our national symbol, they really didn't tend to be appreciated to the degree that they are now. So I think a number of different things happened. Tools were given states and money through the Endangered Species Act. DDT was banned in the United States, and then people's attitudes changed. And instead of going like, ugh, chicken killing bird, get away, they were like, oh, that's a bald eagle, that's so cool. And those three things really made a difference as we see today.
Part of that is the ability to see them. And in the eagle cams that have been set up are a great way to do that. I mean, you really get to get this nest view of the bird and as they raise their young and that just helps you connect to a bird like that, or any critter or creature where you get to see what they're doing other than watching them, scurry across the ground or, flying, hundreds of yards away from you. Maybe talk about that impact that being able to see up close in the nest 24 hours a day that has on people to really understand and appreciate the bald eagle specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that's really fascinating, you have to guard against anthropomorphism or the tendency to humanize something. And I say that because it can be dangerous and sometimes inappropriate for you to say, well, I feel this way, so it's feeling like me. I actually was hurt by a falcon doing that once some time ago. So it's something you have to watch for. But that doesn't mean that you can't recognize that they have thoughts, even if they don't think like us, that they have something like emotions, even if their emotions aren't exactly like ours, and that they have a family life, that they learn things, and that they know things. And we see that in the nest. We see mates court one another. We see them care for their children. We've seen new mates become better parents as the years pass. So one thing you'll see when you have a new mate come in, sometimes he or she maybe will struggle a little bit with, how do I feed the chicks? How do I relate to my mate? What does nest life look like? And you'll see them get better year after year as they learn what they're doing, they learn the territory, and that's fascinating to watch. So when people look into that nest, they do see something of themselves looking back, parents, children, family, household. And I think that's really important. It makes them really very easy to engage with. You have a story.
Right. When it comes to setting up the technology to seeing the birds up close. It allows us to watch that from our home screens. I know eagle watching in particular is a very popular activity. Obviously, the things that you guys are doing are done in a very professional sense. You're very aware of not disturbing that bird's habitat and its comfortableness with its environment. What are some things that you could recommend to people that are just amateur bird watchers, eagle watchers, to do so that they can enjoy eagles in their environment, but also not tread too closely to those eagles and maybe disturb them in a way that they wouldn't want to be?
Right. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you, get a pair of good binoculars. And if you can afford it, invest in an image stabilizer. Fantastic. If you're beyond that stage, go ahead and think about getting a really good scope, especially if you're watching nesting eagles, because it's not like you're trying to follow a little tiny flitting bird around with a big scope. So those are two things. We say, I think 300 feet is the legal limit. You can stay even further back if this is a pair of really wild eagles that aren't accustomed to human beings. So eagles that built a nest in a tree above your lawn, probably pretty used to you coming and going. And they also get used to sort of natural human patterns of behavior very quickly. Eagles that are nesting 5 miles away in a thick forest, probably going to be a little bit more wary. So you want to take that into account. We don't go up to or disturb the nests after about mid-September at all, because between mid-September and between early October at this latitude and the time they lay eggs, they can be very, very sensitive to disturbance. So we're very careful. We don't go up to the nest. We don't disturb the nest. We don't work under the nest. So, you got to keep that in mind too. What are the eagles doing at any given time? And then you also want to be careful around their food source. So you've got eagles with nestlings in the nest, and maybe you're not anywhere near the nest, but you're hanging out right by their favorite pond where they like to catch fish. That might inhibit them from coming in. So that's worth thinking about too. In Decorah, we've tended to encourage people to stay a little bit back from the pond when the eagles are fishing it, just so we don't, even though they're used to a lot of people, just so we don't disturb their natural behavior.
I know in Prairie to Chien, where our events take place, we have a lot of eagles that come passing through. We have our local flocks, but we have a lot that migrate through as we get into late February and early March. Of course, that's right along the Mississippi River. What's it like in Decorah, where you get, just a little bit further away from that main riverway? What are that migration pattern? Do you see, how much of that do you see in the Decorah area versus maybe what's along the Mississippi?
That is a great question. So Decorah is at the very western edge of the Driftless in Iowa. You go maybe 5 miles out of Decorah and you pretty much hit the ends of it. So we do see eagles. We don't see as many as you see in PDC, but there's a couple things that are going on. Eagles are changing their behavior somewhat in response to confined animal feedlot operations. So it used to be that you would really only see them gathered along open water, right? But now we're starting to see them building on and around cattle farms and hog farms especially. So you'll see that kind of behavior. And then as they breed in an area, their young will come back to the region at least to nest usually. So you'll sort of build up a population in an area. So over the years, in 2011, there was mom and dad, and there might have been a pair or two in Decorah, but not that many. And now we're seeing them not in the numbers that you guys see them, but in a lot greater numbers than we ever have. I was looking for an eagle in December. I was doing some eagle tracking, and I got down into a valley and counted 10 eagles, a combination of juveniles, subadults, and adults that were back near a farm. I would never have expected that in 2011. Like, you did not see it. Mm-hmm. So that's been a change.
As we look at the eagle populations and just their general health going forward, are, obviously concerns about DDT are well in the past. Are there any current threats to eagles or things that people like you are concerned about, or how are things standing as far as those populations and as it continues to recover?
So a couple things. DDT isn't a problem in most places, but it was persistent in the environment. And out in Sauces, which is out in California, there's a DDT Superfund site there that they're still trying to figure out how in the world they're going to clean it up. And every once in a while, when you get big storms or a lot of rain, it'll stir up the DDT-laden settlement, release that back into the food chain, and we'll see especially the eagles there start to have thin eggshells and cracking eggs and so on and so forth. So it's gone in most places, but its problem initially was how persistent it was, and that's still a problem in some places. I think emergent threats, Eagles are pretty robust in terms of what they're willing to eat, which is a good thing, right? You're better off being a generalist than a specialist in most cases when it comes to food. Still, habitat loss threatens everything, and that's really, really important. It's really important to think about. And then, we sort of talk about these bigger ecological catastrophes that could be waiting around the corner. So look at preserving habitat, look at planning for pollinators, look at sort of the things that you can do to prop up the food chain that the eagles sit almost at the top of, because one of the very few things that could really impact eagles, and it would impact a lot of other stuff on the way to eagles, would be the diminishment of the food chain. So think about how to protect habitat, think about how to keep water clean, how to keep air clean, and how to support pollinators. Those are the most important things we can do. Oh, and keep plastics out of the environment, just for everybody, okay?
All right, last thing to wrap things up, really just if there's anything else you'd like to add, something that commonly comes up from other people if they're asking you questions, what's something else you'd want to let us know about as we wrap things up?
You guys in PDC already know this, but one of the things that fascinates me, a lot of people that watch our cams come from places where they do not have winter. So, I'm like, oh, snow again. They're like, snow, and ice fishing, fascinating to them. So what we tend to tell people a lot when they say, well, how do eagles survive this cold weather? Because they lay eggs in February, is they're really well adjusted to it. They're warm-blooded. They have body temperatures of 105 degrees. They have spare to incubate because proper incubatory temperature is about 99 degrees. So they're really well placed to withstand the cold. And that's a huge benefit to them. Since young spend between 70 and 80 days in the nest, and that's a really, really long time, especially for a bird, they need to lay early to take advantage of sort of the spring flush of food, and then the fact that their eaglets aren't going to fledge until June or July, and they have to have a couple of months learning. And you'll see it if you look at young juvenile eagles in June and July that are fledging, they're super dopey flyers. Like the adults are, graceful, I'm soaring in the sky, and the young are not gracefully soaring the sky. So there's all these sort of interesting things go on as the eagles have come into alignment with this latitude and the weather we experience and all of the things that we see. And I find that to be a really fascinating way to try to approach the lives of the eagles through their own lens and not through my lens. And I think it's well worth doing and really well worth connecting with another animal, whether that's an eagle or coyotes, foxes, gulls, warblers, hawks, any of the kind of animals that you connect with. Look around, see them, think about them, see the land that's around you, and look for what's in it. Because I love to watch our eagles, but I also like to see what's on my own land. And I think everyone should do that. And PDC is beautiful. You guys have a lot of cool stuff down there.
Well, we'll wrap things up with bits of information. How can people learn more about the Raptor Resource Project?
They can go to our website at www.raptorresource.org or Google Decorah Eagles Raptor Resource.
All right, Amy Ries, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. This was a ton of fun.